In 1987, Blackwood Asylum was shut down, but not because the patients were cured. Something inside demanded silence, a silence that still lingers to this day. Most people forgot about it, but Lucy Morgan didn't. Lucy was a journalist, one who chased dark stories no one else dared to touch. And this time, she'd gone too far. It started with an old photo, a grainy image of a dark, windowless room covered in strange carvings. Locals called it the Silent Room. They said it was where the most dangerous patients were kept, but there was more to it than that. Lucy couldn't stop thinking about it. She stared at the photo for hours, wondering what had happened inside that room. She told herself it was just research, but something about the image pulled at her, like a whisper she couldn't quite hear. The next evening, Lucy found herself standing outside Blackwood Asylum. The air was colder than it should have been, and the wind seemed to whisper through the broken windows. The building's rotting doors hung crooked, like a twisted grin daring her to enter. Lucy told herself she was just there for the story, but deep down, she knew that wasn't true. Inside, the air was thick, cold enough to sting her skin. The hallway stretched on forever, lined with peeling wallpaper and shattered glass. Her footsteps echoed loudly, but she wasn't alone. The shadows seemed to move, sliding along the walls when she wasn't looking. And then, she found it. The Silent Room. The door stood slightly open, like it had been waiting for her. Lucy's breath hitched, but she couldn't stop herself. She stepped inside. The room was small, barely big enough to stand in. The walls were covered in deep carvings, jagged symbols that seemed to pulse under her flashlight's beam. The air was ice cold, and that's when she knew something terrible had happened here. Before she could turn back, the door slammed shut behind her. Lucy screamed and pounded on the door, but it wouldn't budge. Her flashlight flickered, then died. The room was swallowed in total darkness. Then, she heard it. A whisper, faint at first, but growing louder. "You shouldn't have come." The whispers didn't come from one voice, but many, overlapping, crawling into her head. Lucy clamped her hands over her ears, but it didn't help. The voices were inside her mind. And then, she saw him. A figure emerged from the corner, a gaunt, skeletal man in a tattered asylum uniform. His face was twisted into a grin, and his hollow eyes locked onto hers. "Welcome to the Silent Room," he rasped. Then the memories hit her, flashes of the past. Patients screaming. Doctors performing twisted experiments. Blood flooding the Silent Room. And this man, this thing, had been one of the victims, driven mad by endless pain and isolation. "They tried to silence us," the man hissed. "But we found a way to speak, through you." The whispers grew deafening. The walls seemed to bleed black sludge, and the symbols glowed brighter, like they were feeding on her fear. The man's twisted grin widened, and Lucy felt her mind slipping away. But Lucy wasn't ready to die. In a desperate move, she grabbed a jagged piece of wood from the floor and slammed it into the glowing symbols. The symbols flickered, then cracked. The whispers turned to screams as the twisted figure shrieked in rage. The room shook violently, and the door creaked open. Lucy didn't look back. She stumbled through the door as the asylum groaned around her. The walls cracked, and shadows seemed to claw at her heels as she ran. She made it outside just in time. The asylum's walls crumbled behind her, but as she stood in the cold night air, she knew she hadn't truly escaped. Lucy returned home, shaken but alive. She wrote her story, an article titled "The Truth Behind Blackwood Asylum." But no amount of words could describe what she had seen or what had followed her home. At night, the whispers returned, faint at first, but louder each time. They spoke her name, calling her back. And sometimes, when Lucy looked at her reflection, her eyes seemed different, darker, hollow, like his. But the worst part? The Silent Room didn't keep its victims. It sent them home, so they could bring others back.